fans, coming to you amazingly through the Zoom format of compression of audio and sound and video and picture all at the same time. Two sides to every story right here at 3D Politics. Tommy McCay, your fantastic host, bringing it all to you live right now. I've got David Oldham from Constitutional Grounds, and of course David Van, Soonerpolitics.org, and me, Tommy McCay, your amazing perspicuitous host here on 3D Politics. We've got a great lineup for you tonight. Don't forget, the big story for me is Craig Emmel. We're going to have one of our mayoral candidates. We've had a forum each week, and now we've got Craig Emmel tonight at 7:30, bringing him on live between 7:30 and 8 to discuss it. Our other headlines are Blue Graffiti Matters and Void of Leadership at City Hall, Education Goes Home, and more court updates at the end. So, gentlemen, how's it been all this week for you guys? Anybody?
I'm confused.
What
I'm taking my cues from Bynum, and I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, I got to say, it's been an exciting week. But before we slip into all of the things that matter, let's just humanize ourselves. I've got a 12-year-old that's going back to school, and I'm having to explain to her how cruel and unusual the mask mandate is for the children. And yet I want her to behave, and try to comply. So I've given her the out. It's like you play it as best you can, and then when you can't stand it, you just tell them, take me to daddy and I'll come pick you up. But I mean, it's insane. I was a total minority. I just went to get the sandwich the other day, and I'm the only guy in there. They're looking at me like I'm strange, which strange for other reasons. But what about you guys? What's going on?
Not the normal one.
Right. Oldham, what do you got going on this week before the business?
Oh, well, I mean, it's been kind of crazy with the masks and so forth. My big thing is I've been trying to get people to call OSHA because OSHA, I don't remember, we played the video showing how the masks are actually illegal.
Yeah. Oldham, weren't you saying you got to run to the take office by Thursday for something?
Yes, let's get that out real quick. Get that out real quick. If you're within a year of your renewal of your driver's license, now you guys all know I hate driver's licenses, but if you are, Real ID is here, and it is here pretty much to stay for driver's licenses. You can get a driver's license still that is not Real ID if by Thursday you go to either the Catoosa or the Osage tag agencies.
There you go.
And so get
it's
down
all very
there.
confusing.
If there are others in other parts of Oklahoma, please let us know. But I do know Catoosa and Osage out here in the eastern Oklahoma area. You can do it by Thursday.
So much for humanizing Oldham. What about you, Van? What about you before the business? Give it a shot.
I got some blue paint on my shoes. I didn't do it. You didn't see me. Nobody can prove anything.
Okay. As you can see, viewers, it's only me that has a life outside of 3D Politics. These guys are on it all the time, and I just piggyback on their greatness to bring it to you live every Monday night. So let's just jump into it and tell us about the Blue Graffiti Matters. Van, what happened, and why are they upset?
I warned him it was coming. Bynum couldn't make up his mind whether it's got to go, got to stay. Can we negotiate with somebody? What? He didn't know what he was doing. And I warned him. Bob Jack warned him. And, you got lawlessness. And what do you know? Somebody decided that the thin blue line needs to be represented. You got anarchy here, folks. And so this happened Sunday morning. All of a sudden, there's a thin blue line. Somebody probably sitting in the back tailgate of a pickup truck with you know.
Well, there's no reason to disparage pickup truck drivers.
How do you know it wasn't somebody driving down with their door open?
Listen,
isn't the question really thrown or painted? I mean, isn't that the go on, Van? Go on.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if this wasn't even just a fake thing done by the Blue Lives Matters people, just
Red
to stir
flag,
up,
blue line, boom, there it is.
you know, just to claim victimhood. Because did it work? Well, it did with at least one claimed Republican city councilor, Cass Fowler, who said that blue paint is hurtful.
Oh,
I
no.
tell you. Yeah, and I'm like, what the heck? It's graffiti on top of graffiti. So, you know, this.
Yeah,
this
but
came,
I mean, you can't have hurtful graffiti,
yeah,
can you?
yeah. Well, I can't figure out which one of it's hurtful, though.
Isn't all caps hurtful? I think all caps is hurtful. So I'd like to change the font
true.
style. Personally,
That's
I'd like
true.
to put some serifs on there.
They're
And-
yelling at us. Yeah. I want to
No.
see it. Hey, listen, Tom, you're Cherokee. You know, North Tulsa is Cherokee territory, right?
Well, that's
Why
they don't
was it-
see me there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
Why wasn't this written in the Cherokee language, the homeland of the native people
Okay.
that
Well, we've learned to get along with you white guys, and we're like, look, you're in charge now because you took over. Our tribal ways gave way to a more proper form of society, which is individual rights instead of group rights.
well,
And
the
so
good
we
thing
had to move to that, but I would agree there should at least be a Cherokee caption at the bottom.
the
We should
good news
have
is- The good news is, Tom, the street's named for a Cherokee Union chief, Greenwood LaFleur. Look it up. So at least we get to give
now
them the street.
who is this first name Greenwood?
Yes,
It's kinda
Greenwood
wacky.
LaFleur.
Why did they
Yes.
name it LaFleur?
And he wasn't even an Oklahoman.
No, his tribe came out here. He was elected to the state senate in Mississippi, but his hometown was renamed Greenwood in his honor. And in fact, the county was renamed LaFleur in his honor. This was a man.
LaFleur County. I've actually heard of that.
Well, no, there's a LaFleur County, Oklahoma, which is in Choctaw Territory.
Yeah.
But up here where the Cherokees and Creeks are, we decided to name it after him. Actually,
Well, we were probably better friends with him.
yeah, actually, the naming of streets on East Side or avenues was done alphabetically, and it had to be the name of a city east of the Mississippi. And Greenwood, Mississippi, qualified for that. Therefore, there you have it. So that's why it's named Greenwood. Now, I'm not going to talk about how many slaves this man owned because that might offend the black folk. So,
Well, that seems like a microaggression against me, but I for the record, I'm against slavery. And even even now, I'm gating some of my jokes just to be polite. That is amazing. That is amazing. I've never been so mature in my life.
yeah, but I want to congratulate how big the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce is tonight, that they actually decided to name the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce after a slave-owning Cherokee Indian.
Okay, now that opens up a wound for me because earlier
LaFleur.
this week, apparently my bipartisan tax money went to pay G.T. Bynum's mayoral staffers to write up the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce paperwork for him.
Yeah.
I mean, like nobody came to me and said, Tom, let's write you a grant. You know, GT and his staffers going to write you a grant, Tom.
He's not alone on that.
But what I'm saying is I don't mind if they do. I don't care what you paint on the street. That because the words have whatever meaning you put in your mind, it's totally symbolic. It means nothing. It means everything. It means nothing. The blue line to me represented the police wrapping their helpful arms around, you know, the yellow lines. It is to me. I don't care what I don't run into people or other objects when I'm driving. That's all.
Okay.
I don't care what's painted on the road.
Let me finish what happened an hour later, live Sunday afternoon. A young man who happened to be white was out there re-rolling the yellow paint over the blue, erasing our thin blue line of protection. And it begs the question to me, with cops watching it, by the way, does blue graffiti matter?
Yeah. Sounds like a feminine hygiene product.
Tom, does blue graffiti matter in this town?
Here's what matters is the enforcement of law. That's what I say. I don't care if the blue line means nothing. The yellow lines mean nothing. What matters is there is no enforcement of basic law. And it doesn't matter if the law is right or wrong. There was an agreed upon law. And here it is. Somebody broke it. And we thought, you know, this message is so important. We're going to go ahead and break the law this time. And then somebody was like, oh, really? You can break the law around here? Well, here's a little blue line. And again, my problem was with the font. It's a big, fat, ugly, yelling font. And I can't stand it. It needs some little pretty curly cues on it.
Yeah. I'm just glad that they've taken the argument to the streets and paint rather than just, you know, being at each other's in the face, you know, and having bullhorns yelling at each other, you know, a foot apart.
One of my favorite people is watching, Blake Barber, and he says he makes some comments that make me say, he didn't say this, but inspired in my mind by what Blake is saying here on our comments on our 3D Politics Facebook Live page, is that I had a question earlier and Blake's reminding me by his comments, what is the difference in the Black Lives Matter quote unquote mural and what they used to call tagging? Is this not tagging? Isn't this called tagging?
Well, yes, but sort of, yes. But the thing is that they're doing it into absolute public property and not onto private property or onto a building or something like that.
That makes it tagging. That's what they put these gang tags. There it is, Blake. They put these gang.
You know,
they put these gang tags on the over. It's tagging
was done with spray paint, was painted all over other people's stuff. And this
so
isn't,
the blue line is a white gang. That's all.
You know, the neighborhood cat does it to our place with urine, so at least we don't have urine.
Yeah, not mine. Not mine. Urine. It's not mine. Hey, if you're just tuning in, Tommy McCay here, your volatile host with both Davids, David Van and David Oldham. Everything national, everything state, everything local, every Monday night right here, 3D Politics. Tonight, don't forget Craig Emmel coming up. I'm got to keep my eye out in the waiting room. We get 30 minutes with one of the mayoral candidates, Craig Emmel, independent candidate. And so we're excited to have another candidate. We've already had Ty Walker and Ken Reddick, and next Craig Emmel. So we're hoping to get everybody on. So very good. What have we got next? But the void of leadership at City Hall is basically the same problem we were talking about, but it extends with GT's lack of. It's worse than being ignorant. He's having to be taught and then untaught and then retaught and then untaught. He's flipped and then flopping. Same thing happened on the PD Live thing. If he could have just stuck to his Baker Mayfield flag in the ground for 24 hours on that live PD thing, they would have canceled it. He would have looked like a real man. But otherwise, he was like, you know what? You know, the message is so strong. The message is so important. Well, hell, I got important messages. You know, so.
They've lost control of this city. The city council doesn't even realize it.
Right.
You know, this is Crystal Knock of 38 in Berlin. This is people going nuts with paint and the cops do nothing about it.
Well, okay. Well, I've been thinking about that, and that's a little overboard because I mean we're not going out and just destroying too much property. Certainly not on the order of Crystal Knock.
Have you seen all the destroyed flags on people's front doorways in this town?
And
no, I haven't. So I don't know how many people have had their stuff destroyed.
We had riot police here in Tulsa down on was it 71st and then and then also on.
I get that, but that's I mean, remember, Crystal Knock is
listen,
order of magnitude.
Ty Walker's campaign manager is Charity Marcos. I've got a video of her on the day they shut down Brookside, Peoria Avenue, and she's celebrating it. That's Ty Walker's campaign manager. I've got that video. I mean, we've got some real problems here, and I'm just talking about the Republicans now.
Right.
This is a problem.
See, I don't know that she knows exactly who she's associating with on that video, but I will tell you, we do have a problem with the local media from the frontier. You've got Kevin Canfield allowing Dylan Goforth to spread his iconoclasm, liking the fact that Columbus's head gets knocked off on a statue. Okay, we have local media supporting iconoclasm and clism. They want to go ahead and destroy individual artistic expression around here, and this is the problem with the Black Lives Matter thing, because they say it's a community project, but I guarantee you, if I went down there to paint my serifs to pretty up their blocky letters, they'd say, hey, buddy, you can't touch this mural. And the reason why is the group picks you. It's not the other way around. I feel like I'm a member of the community, but I'm not a member of the community that gets to touch that mural.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, what about the guy that was down there the other day? Did they have problems with him?
They don't have a problem with him because he's kowtowing to what they want. All I want to do is put whoever painted yellow over the blue.
Painting the yellow over the blue.
What's wrong with abstract graffiti where we allow everybody in the community to put a color on?
Yeah, they're turning that graffiti into a relic, a religious relic, you know. I don't
mind. Do what you want, but follow the law or change it to where it fits your problem.
Yeah, I'm just telling you, we don't have anybody willing to stand up for proper order of things. No one right now.
Well, yeah, they've been in the business of lawlessness for all too long. That's my message.
Yeah,
that's what
I'll tell you. At this point, I'm ready
because it's lawless.
I'm ready to throw out the entire city council at this point. I don't find a one that I can support.
It's interesting to interview these different mayoral candidates because to find out their motive for running, because it really the person who doesn't, it's an interesting breed who wants the power. Okay. And the motive therein is what you're looking to find. And then many people with great motives and intentions have illogic and counterintuitive ideas that don't play out in real life. But it's been a real depression to watch GT. Basically, I would prefer a strong opponent as opposed to an opponent that flip-flops all the time. I used to make fun of John Sullivan and say, look, on the bus or off the bus, on the wagon or off the wagon, are you drinking or not drinking? I would rather vote for a drunk than a liar. Just pick a team.
You know, Tom, I'm going to say this in front of everybody. You were 4 years ahead of your time. You belong in this year's campaign for mayor.
Thank you, David. A man ahead of his time has got to be late every chance he gets just to bring the average out of it. That's how it goes.
Yeah, because I mean, this is a sad lot. Now, I do want to say we've had a couple of people on here before, Ty Walker, Ken Reddick. Reddick is actually catching traction financially. He's got some very influential people now backing him. He's got some fundraisers happening. We'll keep an eye on that. Because really, we need a better alternative. And the biggest question people had is, can Reddick pull together the money that it'll take for messaging?
I'm not counting anybody out, but I will say as far as like diversity of message, it seems like everybody is either GT or GT Light, except surprisingly for Paul Tay. I mean, Paul Tay seems to be the one guy who's given a message that's any different than anybody, but we'll find out from Craig Emmel. I was surprised that Ken Reddick and Ty Walker had very little differences, really. And they were both very similar to GT. Yeah. I've read up on Robinson and I've read up on Emmel, and they're both, GT some more. And so Paul Tay is really the only guy bringing up the problem with the philanthropy in Kaiser.
So tonight we've got Craig Emmel, and then after that interview, you're going to announce what the rest of the month's schedule looks like, right?
That is correct.
All right. I'm teasing. Stay tuned, folks.
I've got, looks like I've got, what breed? Blake, I'm a rare breed is the answer to the questions on there. So, and remember, sometimes the questions will, of course, come in late because there's a delay, and I'm slow and stupid, and so sometimes that puts a delay. and then the satellite lag, and then boom, it could be minutes later before I come back with my witty comeback.
Yeah.
Once again, you're tuning in just in time, especially for all you Craig Emmel fans, because you know he's going to join us. Yes, Van, what do you got?
I'm going to give some equal time. Cheryl Johnson just says, hey, listen, Cass Baylor's generally been a good Republican, and you know what? I've heard good things about him. I'm just saying, yesterday, I think he wishes he had a do-over because Cass lost me yesterday. I hope he can clean it up. We got a city council meeting Wednesday. We're going to hear more. Let's see what he says.
Very good. Very good. I appreciate that. And we appreciate our viewers commenting and allowing us to work out the timing where you're watching and we're responding. Yes, sir.
I got another thing.
Yes, sir.
Watch for a county commission meeting today. Karen Keith, the Democrat on our city council, says she plans to vote to shut down our state fair this fall.
Now, that doesn't seem fair.
Yes. So stay tuned on that. And remember, and I reached out to her opponent, Josh Turley. Yeah, Josh Turley. I'm waiting for a response from him on that. But folks, you know, and listen, Karen Keith got her start in politics as an appointee of Mayor Bill LaFortune. This is what happens when Democrats start giving, when Republicans give Democrats some appointments like that. You're empowering them to become dangerous.
Oldham, what do you got?
I was just going to say, if it's going to come down to a vote of the Board of Commissioners to whether or not we have the Tulsa State Fair, then people need to contact the other commissioners to make sure that they vote for the fair, because otherwise we've got even more businesses run out of down to the ground and into the ground.
As you can see, it's a push for anti-consumerism. But before anybody interrupts me again, Van, it's Tommy McCay, your fantastically amazing host on 3D Politics with both Davids, the most important Davids in Oklahoma. David Van with SoonerPolitics.org and David Oldham, ConstitutionalGrounds.com. And don't you forget it. And I know, hopefully, that all of the people that are looking for Craig Emmel to fix Tulsa's problems are tuning in right now with us on 3D Politics to watch their candidate Craig Emmel come up here at the bottom of the hour. But I just want to thank all of the candidates of the Tulsa mayoral race for putting their hats in the ring, because running for office is a big deal. It takes a lot of chutzpah to get out there and put your name out there. And we have a great system in America where a little outfit like 3D Politics gets to press all the mayoral candidates and comment weekly on things. So there are a lot of countries where we don't, you're not able to just ask GT a question. Yeah. Boom, there goes Van. What do you got for us?
I tell you, I was holding up traffic on South Boston Avenue downtown. So now I'm at the center of the universe. So this is just pedestrian traffic here.
I love it, man. I love it. I love the diversity of our show. I, of course, have borrowed a green screen because that's how much money I don't have. But I believe, Van, you have a blue? Yours is
blue screen. But
is that correct?
I'm hearing an echo now, and it's only when I talk. I don't know if it's because of my new location.
It's probably the voice in your head. Of course.
Hey, you're just jealous because the voices speak to me.
Well, I just know that I am the voice of the voices in my head. So that puts me in charge of all them. And then eventually we just vote somebody off the island. So we have covered, though, the blue graffiti matters, which I'm amazing. It's surprising to me that this is gotten into the weeds so deep, and we can't just simply understand that if somebody breaks a basic law, you can't just say, well, it's important. I'm underrepresented in the NFL and have been for years. Guys my size. I mean, Tom Brady made it. He's different.
A little bigger than you.
Okay, all right. Your microaggression. You and your microaggression. But the fact is, I'm underrepresented. That's an important message. And, I just am left out in the cold on that. But it's because I'm not in the group. And if merit is not going to matter for the individual, then you're going to have to bring down entire institutions. You'll remember a couple of weeks ago, I had a board at Lowe's, and I said to the man, cut this board in half. And his first question was, how long is it? And that immediately lets you know you're dealing with a moron. And so to know he was dealing with a smartass, I said, well, what if it was 1,000,000 miles long? Where would you start cutting? One bite at a time, boy. I cut her in half. One chunk at a time. So anyway, the fact is, you know, if the individual that is unable to cut a board in half cannot be held responsible as an individual, then it is either the gender's problem and we deny all genders the ability to cut a board, or it's the race because that race can't cut boards, or it's the training because the company didn't train them, or it's the entire institution of Lowe's that is unable to cut a board in half. If we cannot hold the individual responsible, you will bring down institution after institution.
Yeah.
And at times it's regulation because, you know, they just tell them they're not allowed to, you know, use a tape measure or whatever. And so there's something else there because government always is in the mix of all this stuff.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of retail places in Tulsa area, I'm got a boycott today. I want to announce the Quick Trip on 111th and Elm in Broken Arrow. Sarah S., congratulations, clerk at Quick Trip. You have just lost all business for your store because I went in with my 52-ounce mug and got a refill, and she says, I'm charging you full price for that because refills aren't allowed and haven't been since last March, which I said, well, tell that to the Tulsa stores. And she says, well, I'm telling you what the health department mandates. So she was being a total itch about it. And
wow.
I am done with that particular Quick Trip. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
my.
Well, that should get back to Quick Trip because Quick Trip
that's you'll probably bring them down.
And I'm telling you, she was just about as nasty about it as could be. I mean, there was no, I'm sorry, nothing I can do about it, sir. It was just scolding me because I deigned to go in and fill my mug that I bought from them under the policy conditions of that I will always be able to get the refills at that price. It's a breach of contract. She didn't apologize for anything. And I'm telling you, all the Quick Trips in the city of Tulsa removed that restriction. They only had it there in the month of April.
Okay.
That she didn't get the memo out there in South Broken Arrow.
Look, if you and me and everybody stands together, we'll bring that Quick Trip down, right?
You've got some in the waiting room, Tom.
You know, boy, that's right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring Craig Immel in from the waiting room. Ladies and gentlemen, Tulsa's independent mayoral candidate. Here he comes, joining by Zoom. Let's see if we can connect to the audio. We never trust Zoom. Zoom's like the government. You know, you never can trust them. Craig Immel coming on. Been saying that name for a week now. So I've got it properly. Do you want to take out the 3D van?
I am leaving the meeting, and you guys we should have Craig in. Craig, we going to have audio for you, a video?
Well, you should have my audio. Let me see if I can get my video.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
there he is, ladies and gentlemen.
There he is.
Please welcome Craig. Do we say the name right? Craig Immel.
You got it. You nailed it.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
So thank you for bringing the independent voice to the message here. I understand you don't lean left or right, you lean forward. And so tell us a little bit about yourself. We got half an hour with you, and I don't want to waste time. So I'm a little bit, I'm a simple man, so I'm a little abrasive. So we're going to, these guys, they'll keep me in line. But what we'll do here is kind of give you the first portion of the show to kind of just kind of express what your views are, what you're talking about. And then I've studied your campaign a little. I want to press you a little bit and put you under some duress. And then the Davids will have some follow-up. Everybody can say anything they want at any time. So if I say something stupid, say, well, Tom, that's just stupid. We have mostly fun around here. But really, I've run for mayor. I did in 2016. I got an issue with GT, and only because he's related to Dewey Bartlett Jr., And my issue was with Dewey Bartlett. But anyway, I appreciate you running. I know what it takes. So take it away, Craig. Emma, what do you know? What do you got for us on the show today?
You bet. Well, I'll try to keep it brief, but thanks for having me. I do appreciate it. And, you know, thank you for running. It is a challenge, and I have a ton of respect for anyone that's willing to put
me too
out there like that. So regardless of how you see the world, or how anyone does. But just to, sorry, I'm pulling up.
Go ahead. It's Zoom. But, anything works. It's Zoom. Trust me.
I know, it's kind of forgiving in a way. Yeah. But yeah, so my name's Craig Immel. I'm running as an independent, as you said. Grew up in Tulsa area, although I did move to Sand Springs when I was I started 5th grade there and graduated from high school at Sand Springs. And then I stayed home, went to school at TJC for a year. Then I went over to OSU Stillwater. And right after that, I was like, I'm getting the hell out of Oklahoma, and moved up to Colorado, lived up there for about 8 years, kind of small towns, big cities, went to graduate school up there, just kind of worked full-time in construction, put myself through school in the evenings. And I did that because I wanted to learn more about real estate development. Frankly, I mean, I had some kind of residential construction experience, and I had real estate experience. I became a licensed real estate broker when I was like 23 years old or something. So I've been around that kind of field for a long time, but I wanted to kind of get a more advanced view of the industry and get some real hands-on experience in Denver, building big projects and doing a lot of things around sustainability and green building, energy efficiency, water efficiency, trying to just felt like doing the right thing, trying to kind of reduce the industry's impact on the environment. Anyway, 2008, fall of 2008, I came back here to visit some family. My sister was expecting her, actually she was just getting married. And my grandmother, my last living grandmother, was kind of in kind of later stages of her life. So I thought I'd come back, and some things fell into place, moved back here. And when I moved here, I was like, wow, look at all these opportunities for a guy like me. Like Tulsa is like 10, 15 years behind everywhere else. You know, it's kind of how people would describe it to me. And I'm like, man, great opportunities here to apply my trade and do some cool things in Tulsa. And I love Tulsa, right? So anyway, 10, 15 years later, we're still basically spinning our wheels in a lot of the same ways and not really making the kind of progress I think we need to see to keep up. And then, you know, just through advocacy around my industry and getting involved in the Helmrich Park thing and all that, I just kind of really was like, man, there's a lot of room for improvement in our local government.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up because I saw and poured over your Q&A on Reddit, and I thought it was great. It gave me a lot of information about you. I thought it was great. And so clearly I could see that the Helmrich Park thing was your real meat. That's where your goat's tied up. And so tell me a little bit about that before I grill you on defining terms.
Sure. Well, you know, I try not to let that become like the central issue, but it, you know, looking back.
No, it's a catalyst. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to give you all the room to get into it. I want to know about it. Plus, sure. my catalyst to run for mayor was one phone call on the air with Pat Campbell and DBJ, and that's why I ran for mayor. It wasn't the single thing. I had other issues and I had a campaign. I wasn't just a protest candidate. But go ahead and I want to know about you're clearly involved heavily as the plaintiff in the Helmrich Park thing. Hit it.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, basically my industry involvement and connections that I have, or other advocates and people that even work at the city and planning offices were like, hey, you know, like, look at this development that's kind of getting pushed through. Have you heard about it? I was like, no, I haven't heard about it. And at that time I lived on Riverside. And so like part of the reason I lived in Tulsa was like, okay, this is a cool area where I can live next to the river, next to the trails, because I was outdoors and really into cycling. And anyway, I kind of kept hearing about it, and then I heard it was going to be an REI. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, that's not the worst thing in the world. And then I saw the development plans, it was just like a sea of parking, and it really was much more than an REI. It was a full kind of, very mediocre type of strip mall type of situation.
From your expertise, you could see it was a lame project for the money.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
of course,
okay.
And I also knew the kind of stores that REI typically built. They're usually in strip malls, although they do point to like a handful of really cool, what they call the flagship stores, and that's kind of how they try to sell it to Tulsans, even though it's very clear that wasn't what it was going to be. But so I got involved with my group, and we said, all right, well, we're gonna do all the things you learn in high school. Email your city councilor, call them, go speak at a meeting. I did that for the first time. I think it was the first time. Spoke at a planning commission meeting. Spoke at in city council after that. But it became very clear, like, this was already happening, and it wasn't up for debate. Like, no appearance of public input was going to change anything about it.
Right.
And,
they called the meeting. I've been to the school meetings before. They called it to discuss when it's already been decided. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just really, it's just really, and it became clear that a lot of city councilors, including Bynum and Lakin and Blake Ewing at the time, they were all aware of it. And they were even like in negotiations with the developers. They just weren't telling anyone about it because they knew it was a hot button issue.
A lack of transparency.
Yeah. So I take my daughter over to a friend's son's birthday party. I think they were both about 4 years old, or 3 maybe. And I ran into an old college friend who's a real estate lawyer in Oklahoma City. I'm like, all right, here's the situation. Is there anything that can be done? He's like, file an injunction, just real simple thing, no big deal. I'm like, is it going to kill me? I mean, am I taking on a lot of legal liabilities? Like, no.
Right.
No big deal. So I Googled how to write an injunction and wrote it up, and basically it was really friendly. I said, TPFA, why don't you give the public 90 days to first of all, see what it is you're deliberating, because you're talking about signing a contract and no one knows if it's a sell, if it's a lease, if it's what the purchase price is, or any of the terms.
A whole lot of unknown. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just unacceptable in this day.
Right. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I did that, and then it just kind of snowballed after that, and people, more and more people started paying attention, and it was around the time of the vision stuff where they're asking us to put $150-200 million into river improvements and things like that, and also a lot of that I feel like a lot of that was misrepresented too.
You think?
Yeah. So, it's kind of one thing led to another. And then,
you're referring to the dam taxes, right?
A lot of things since then. So I said, you know what, like at a bare minimum, there needs to be another alternative. I don't think any candidate should be crowned without some type of challenge. So I said, I'm going to throw my name in there and run. And frankly, I do think I'd be a better mayor. So,
hey, Tom, can I just ask, what's the status now of that area of the park, Riverside, 71st on down to the apartments? What's the status?
So with a lot of public pushback, they scaled the area of the cell down to about 8.8 acres, something like that, the northernmost end of the park. But basically, it went to the Supreme Court. The district court basically punted to the Supreme Court.
Sure.
And so we went there. The city moved to dismiss, obviously, and the justices voted unanimously to hear our case. That was the status as of September, and there hasn't been any motion on it since.
Okay, so we've been about 10 months waiting then.
Yeah, but it was 5 years ago in August that I filed the original injunction, and it's just it's I mean, it hasn't been the huge problem for me or anything.
It's the deaf. I'm sorry.
And what mayor keeps his some pretty prominent Tulsans tied up in Supreme Court just to simply assert his unilateral right to sell any park he wants.
And Tom, I just want to give an observation because I live about a mile from those sand volleyball courts, half mile. And that was a growing segment of our recreational community until that cloud of uncertainty hit about 5 years ago. And now you don't see the volleyball leagues. They don't know if they're going to have a court next year, to play on. And it's sad when you see those kind of recreational involvements that really aren't city developed. It's just the people developed it because we had that known entity, and now we have a cloud over it. We could lose it within a month or two.
Right. And they did, just to be super clear, the city did build some new courts to the south, just beyond the boundary of what they want to sell. They're a little harder to see from the road. But I mean, they're not the big, competition level courts that they promised that they would provide if we would just let them sell the park.
Yeah.
Say, if you're just joining us, I am pleased to announce the opportunity to interview Craig Emmel, independent Tulsa mayoral candidate for the 2020 campaign. And again, joining me as every week on Mondays, David Van and David Oldham. Craig, I really do appreciate your not only throwing your hat in the ring, but joining us here. And so you could stay all night and we could play nice, but I'm going to run out of time. So I want to press you on some issues just to see how deep it gets. And let me also, just in transparency of motive, I'm an entrepreneur, a father of 5, married 35 years, 1 woman, 5 kids. It's like, and I'm a musician, artist. I'm not a politician. When I ran, they said, "You really think you can win?" And my attitude was, my job is to fight the fight. The voters will figure out who wins. And so if I catch up into who's going to win, that's not even my business. So your lack of experience, and I say that it's a breath of fresh air to me. So, but I gotta say, who is it? You talk about experts in the field of food supply, et cetera, and some of these concepts of renewable energy and clean tech, and you suggest the experience that you have is with some pretty big people. And who are you talking about?
No one very controversial, I don't think.
No, I'm not looking for controversy. I'm looking let me see if I can find my notes. You've said that you're working with experts in the field of food production, for instance.
Yeah, so I know some local people here that have built some pretty major community gardens. A friend of mine who I've been an advocate with I met her probably 12 years ago. She runs a mobile grocery store running food up into food deserts. And individually, they are all very well respected in their fields, even nationally. And then on the renewable energy side, I mean, that was a line of business that I've been in and probably will get back into at some point when it's more economically feasible. But I've been a consultant for PSO with some of their energy efficiency programs, and with people who, everyone from the Secretary of Energy.
Okay, I've got some, I'm sorry to interrupt. To save time, I found my notes. I'm sorry to get you there, but America's best builders, real estate developers, urban planners, renewable energy developers, engineers of public infrastructure, state and local government develop and enhance. So there's a lot of social engineering might be a buzzword that would turn some people off in your campaign. That is, you're going to build the environment and suggest that local government should train and educate the people of the community. Does that sound right?
Well, I mean, in general, I don't think it's necessarily government's job to train everyone, but I think it's to some degree to help lead people. Where we're going is we're going to be focused on different energy sources. I mean, whether any of us here on this call like it or not.
Now, why is that?
Because fossil fuels eventually are going to deplete. I mean,
and why do you say that?
They're a finite resource. I mean, you get to a point where, there's still oil in the ground, but it gets to a point where it takes so much money to take it out and so much energy to extract it and move it. And if it's in the case of take the tar sands in Alberta, for example. Right. I mean, my understanding is that is ground basically to a halt. Not only is it the low oil prices, but that is very expensive fuel to move because it's very thick and heavy.
Craig? Okay, Van, what have you got?
Yeah, but Craig, wouldn't the marketplace and the fluctuation of the prices encourage that on its own?
You would think so, but I mean, the oil industry is very heavily subsidized, much more so than the renewable side of things.
Craig, and again, I am so simple. Sometimes I come off very abrasive, and I don't want to sound argumentative, but I want to press against the concept that oil is a finite resource. I am also a goldsmith, a jeweler by trade. I do micro sculpture, casting, and finishing of silver and gold. And one of the things we've learned over the last 20 years through upgraded understanding of geology that's changed from the 80s when I started in the jewelry business is that, did you know that gold is also regenerated in the Earth's surface? Gold and silver is also regenerated. They're finding that it is regenerated. You know, there's a chunk of molten iron that boils this earth from inside out, and there's a churning process that pushes the molten stuff up. And so a lot of people are unfamiliar with the new geological understanding of oil. In fact, shale oil has proved to be very, very efficiently drawn out. But anyway, I understand that there's a push for green energy, but this idea, one of the things that you say also in your Reddit Q&A, and I appreciate your allowing me to press you on this.
Go for it.
You suggest a grassroots thing in Tulsa would be beneficial because we would grow from the bottom up in a grassroots thing. And you say that one of the problems we've had with the G.T. Bynum administration et al. Has been that we shoot for these mega projects and mega companies in these big projects. And I would suggest, sir, that renewable energy is a huge mega project, better and more significant than putting water in the river. So to me, seems a logical contradiction, as abrasive as it may sound, that you are suggesting let's grow it from the bottom up, but we're going to also rebuild with green infrastructure when it doesn't. Green infrastructure cannot compete with the efficiency of oil, especially at the level of reduced carbon footprint of petrochemical.
Well, I might disagree with that, but you know, when I talk about more of a grassroots effort, like I'm just going to use the dams as an example, and I'm just going to use a number 144 million, kind of what's been in the paper lately. We could build 288 $500,000 parks around Tulsa, or we could distribute things a little more. And I think that gives more Tulsans an opportunity to get involved with that. I mean, you know, I feel like right now, I know a lot of people who are struggling to find work. And I'm sure you do too, like being in the entertainment business. Like people, I'm a big Tulsa music fan. And some of my friends in that industry, everyone from the venue owners to the musicians, to the sound guys, to the guys who check tickets. We need some projects for them to work on. So I feel like to some degree, it might sound like some kind of social engineering, but it would be more along the lines of like, you know, FDR's New Deal type thing, you know, which.
The beautification, deferred maintenance, et cetera, that you've mentioned.
There's plenty of public projects that are not getting done for whatever reason. I mean,
but so let me interrupt again. One of the problems I have is with word usage and definitions. When you say create jobs, a job is income, but really deferred maintenance and beautification projects are expenses. So when you say you're going to pay somebody to do a beautification project, you're not creating wealth. You're spending money. You're not really, it's not income. It's an allowance like a parent gives to a child with busy work.
Well, I don't think it's busy work. People are working.
Well, I'm sure they learn to spell and stuff, and it's good to repeat your spelling words and get paid for it, but you're not creating wealth. But anyway, we're running out of time, and I want to get to some meat real fast.
I did want to follow up real quick before we get off of this.
Please.
As you can tell from my background, it's the Constitution for me. So my question is, like with the New Deal, where are you going to get this money to pay for it? Are we just you talking about just diverting what's already coming in, or are we talking about new taxes, or how are we going to pay for the kinds of things that you're talking about?
Well, I don't think we really have any room to collect any new taxes. I mean, I think our citizens' appetite for new sales taxes.
Let's make a marker on this that tonight he said there's no more room for new taxes.
Thank you, Craig. Talk. Just let the man
I'll take
talk.
that as a commitment.
He's got a list of 6 I want to bring up before he runs out of here. So let the man talk.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I would say there are a lot of projects out there that have been approved and really pushed through and pushed onto voters that I think offer a much greatly reduced return on our tax dollar than something like a more distributed system of public projects. I mean, sounds like we're going to have public projects either way. I think the money invested in those projects should be invested a lot smarter.
Okay, either one of you guys, because I want to get you list any time somebody puts down numbers next to words, I take note, and you were careful enough. Many of the things quoting here from Reddit and our guest, many of the things I would like to see change for Tulsa, or at least give Tulsans the right to put to a vote, would need to be done by statewide initiative petition. I want Tulsans to have the ability to decide what is appropriate for Tulsa regarding 6 things: permitless open carry, bans or limitations on single-use plastics, bans or limitations on gerrymandering, ability for the city council to set clean energy targets and goals, modify statutes to allow alternative funding streams to support schools, and number 6, adding authority to increase Tulsa minimum wage. The one I care about most is this idea that is simplistically abrasive to me, and that is a Tulsa minimum wage, that the local municipality would tell me, the businessman, how much I've got to pay a wage for, when the wage is not determined by arbitrary throw the dart at the numbers. That is, if my sandwich costs $10 to make, I have to figure out what the market will pay for it, back everything out, plus my lights, and then I say, I might be able to pay somebody this amount. The wage you pay somebody is calculated by what the market will bear for the product. It is not an arbitrary number. Tell me how Tulsa local municipality, in your eyes, would force a minimum wage on business owners.
I'd say a lot of the same way a lot of other cities have done it. I mean,
name one.
States as well. One of the first that comes to mind is Seattle. I know that's probably not
I'm sorry. I'm a comedian. I laugh at a lot of stuff.
Yeah. But
I mean, Seattle, they're doing some stuff.
Yeah. But the numbers that I've seen as it's been a boost for the economy. I mean, there's more spending power amongst the workers of the city and ultimately the consumers. So you're going to be able to sell a lot more sandwiches too, theoretically.
So if you prevail and you become mayor of the city of Tulsa, you will take an oath to support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Oklahoma, as well as the city charter. Okay. How do you find there any lawfulness to a dictate on or any constitutionality on a dictate for a minimum wage? Where do you find that power? I mean, are we not all created equal? Who are you to be able to tell me what I can pay somebody else, or what they should be allowed to?
Why do they need your help? Who is it that you think you're so better than, is his question, that you think you're going to help? You don't need a minimum wage, but somebody is less than you that needs it.
I wasn't going to put it quite like that.
Yeah, but I do, because I'm a simple man, people, and we're running out of minutes here with the guy that might be the next mayor.
Right. You know, I'm obviously going to have to consult with some constitutional attorneys and get.
Have you met David Oldham? He can help you.
I have now. But you know, not to get too bogged down on any one of these issues, but bigger picture, I take issue with the idea of all the preemptions that the Oklahoma legislature takes over cities. I feel like, you know, the needs of Tulsa and the needs of Oklahoma City are probably a lot different from a lot of the smaller rural communities. And we just need more say in how we manage our city.
Okay.
And
Dan, what do you got?
Individual
yeah, speaking of simple guys, Craig, I think I'm waiting for my 3 big issues to come up, and that is pick up the trash at the parks. It's overloading all of the trash dumpsters there. It's embarrassing what our parks look like. Fix the street lights around this town in the neighborhoods and on the thoroughfares. And number 3 is answer the 911 phone calls before a minute. You know, and nobody's talking about them. We're all talking about social engineering. Go.
This is the second time this week excuse me, the park trash has come up, and kind of ridiculous. You know, I have certain concerns over the way the Parks Department is run. Obviously, I'm passionate about parks.
Yeah, you are.
So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. I mean, it seems like taking out the trash shouldn't be that big of a thing, but I mean, it
sounds like a simple municipal thing
being addressed.
We got 2 minutes left, and I've got a couple things I want to talk about, and that is the first environmental movement. Do you know what it is?
The first environmental movement?
The very first modern environmental movement of the 20th century. You know what it was called? I won't kill you too long. It's called Save the Whales, because before the fossil fuel industry saved the environment, we were killing every whale in sight and cutting the blubber up and burning it in lamps everywhere in the world. And everywhere the Industrial Revolution was burning oil, they needed more whales. And people realized we're going to kill every whale in sight and still not have enough oil to light our lamps. Before the electric light bulb, which is also powered by coal and hydro. Anyway, but the point is, Save the Whales was the first call to save the environment. And who came to the rescue but big oil? It was the Christian Petro-Christian prayers that brought the answer to save the whales, because they said, why are we killing something when we can burn oil from things that are already dead? And I believe
they also brought us prohibition.
So, but we fixed that, didn't we? We fixed that one too. So my point is, let's understand that when you attack, when one attacks the petrochemical world, you're attacking plastics, heart valves, and things that children love. So renewable energy is a big thing that will, in my opinion, never compete. It may be handy on the moon. But the other thing I want to talk about is you've made the reference to Tulsa being a laughing stock in the last minute. Do you think that is the reason? Do you believe that the appearance of Tulsa being a laughing stock nationally and abroad is because of the Kaiser Foundation's influence through philanthropy? Thank you.
No.
It's good enough for me. I'm a simple man. I'm a simple man, Craig. That'll work. Let me ask a follow-up. You seem to be okay? The tares are sown into the wheat, and you seem to be okay with the philanthropy of Kaiser as long as you can somehow ferret out a balanced approach and not have whatever you think is too much of a good thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that question going around town. Like, where is it a little too heavy-handed? And I think it's worth looking at.
Craig, I cannot thank you enough for being on the show. Thanks for easing into it and letting me just shout like a madman. I do appreciate you. Yes, Van, follow up, Van.
Just real quick, What should we do with that graffiti on Greenwood Avenue?
Yeah.
Well, are you talking about the yellow or the blue?
Isn't all graffiti matters?
Yes is the answer. All lines matter.
Here's what I would have suggested. The yellow was down. Let's not do any more street murals, and let's grandfather that in on Greenwood and call it good until we can come up with a better solution. There are cities allowing street murals all over the country, and we need to look at what they're doing and see what's fair.
What about the font? You like the font style?
I'm fine with the font.
So,
yeah, well,
I know we're keeping you,
one
but
more. Yeah, it's
masks,
horrible.
Masks. What would you do it the same, different? What are your views on mask mandates and what Tulsa has done?
Well, I think we need to be wearing masks if we want the virus, if we want to control the spread of it. Unfortunately, people didn't do it voluntarily, and so they put a mandate in place. Obviously, people still aren't wearing masks, and to some extent, I feel like it's taking away my freedom to feel comfortable going in QT or someplace like that, but I actually probably would have been a little more aggressive with the mask mandate when it became clear that so many people were obviously not going to wear them.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Again, Craig Emmel, independent, leaning forward candidate for Tulsa mayoral, independent mayor of Tulsa. Craig, thanks for being here. I'm going to take you away to I'm going to remove you from our broadcast.
Thank you for joining us.
Once again, I appreciate you letting us push you to the task.
Take care.
Thanks for your efforts running. What a great country we have where a guy like you and me can run. Way to go.
You bet. Bye-bye.
All righty.
Gentlemen, that was informative and very exciting. I got to say, looking at some of our crowd, we've got 7 out there, and Cheryl said he said a whole lot of nothing. And then this guy named Blake, some idiot named Blake, Tom doesn't help. So I said, Tom is the entertainment. Tom's the entertainment around here. Oh, hi, Blake. Yeah. Hell, Tom doesn't help. We gave this guy half an hour, and he gave us a half an hour. It was consensual abuse. I thought it was awesome. I
appreciate you putting that together, Tom.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me just go, because we didn't get to the mask and we didn't get to the other stuff. But really, I studied this guy's Reddit Q&A, and he had other issues, and I wanted to make sure he got to talk about Hemrook Park. He had 6 things. I thought I pressed him. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 other things that I did.
You can't get them in a half an hour.
Well, I want anybody who says that he agrees with Greg Robinson, who we'll hope to talk to. A community atonement is one of these. I don't believe that we sin as a community, and I don't believe we atone as a community.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, what do you think about that one?
I think he's just speculating. I mean, the whole mask thing that Oldham brought up, he's just speculating because, I mean, let's face it, the infections are going up with the mask mandate from what they were the month before.
Well, and I think the one thing that came clear through the entirety of the half an hour is just how he approaches the various issues.
Worldview
and his mindset toward governance, and while it will be somewhat different than GT, just because of a
harder, more autocratic.
No, actually, I'm just going to say it's going to be different because of personality.
Right.
It's going to be, from what I can see, pretty much the same thing, and like he said, even more autocratic, especially with the mask.
Okay.
The mask.
Before we go on, we're 5 past the hour. We just got off the exciting ride with Craig Emmel. Tulsa mayoral candidate, independent, not your regular guy, but he was pleased to bring us his information over the last half hour, and we are now just chewing on it because it's everything we want to talk about. Van, what do you got?
Well, yeah, I if I was a cop I would not be wanting to work for the Tulsa with a mayor like that, because Black Lives Matters is very openly hostile towards law enforcement, broadly. And, somebody puts down some blue paint and you treat that like it's, such a terrible scourge in this community, but you want to grandfather in this relic that you call the Black Lives Matter logo. That's just unconstitutional. He's not a constitutionalist.
Fire, Oldham.
Well, I mean, I think I already said pretty much what I had, but I think it's very arbitrary. What I'm seeing is, well, let's just try to make these people happy. We'll just grandfather, we move on, or kind of what's populist. I think it was very telling when he said my right to feel comfortable.
Feel comfortable. He has a right to feel.
And no, mind you, he's a very nice guy.
He's perfect.
And so he's very much, like all good politicians are going to be. They're going to be very amiable and very nice.
Right.
During the election season.
I don't know how. The one thing that I couldn't pick up on that, although he was writing down, David, your suggestions, your issues.
Well, he was writing.
I don't know.
Van is a weirdo.
Well, and this would be something for our viewers who have met him and have talked with him.
Yeah.
How open to outside suggestion and so forth is he? Or is he, all bound up that nobody, once he gets into office, can get through to him? That was one of the things that I couldn't pick out through the conversation that we have gotten through some of the other conversations we have. I just couldn't get a sense of that.
I thought he was way open. I thought he was very open-minded. I felt like, especially in the areas now, again, he's probably a younger guy than I am. He probably thinks about government and worldview differently than I am. I have a Christian, a Judeo-Christian view, a worldview, so it categorizes me. But I thought he had a lot of great information about the parks and the idea of planning. So I'm not saying we shouldn't plan, but Tom, social engineering isn't, it's not like you don't plan a city. It's just that I saw the same problem in him that I see with GT Bynum, is that GT Bynum's business is not in the public schools. We have a whole school government we're paying for. There's no reason to pay for city government to do school government work. We're already paying school government to do school government work.
Well,
and everybody wants to get in on the freaking school van. I'm sorry.
Well, if he's such an expert on the parks, why didn't he pick up on the fact that the trash is overloading? And, I'm the one that has to bring that up. The street light.
He did. He agreed with you,
Oh, he agreed. I brought it up.
He was in our format. I calculated everything he was going to respond. He was being very polite. Wasn't his position, in the parks, trash,
Right.
I gave him every kind of room to talk. He wasn't really, I don't probably think he felt free to throw it in there.
Give me some room to talk.
All
now.
right.
Okay. So is that I gave 3 very unsexy things that weren't about social engineering. And Tom, most of what I got here was that, just preoccupied with the social engineering issues. Right. And every one of those big things we're going for. And I'm just saying, you want to lead this city, what we need is some very basic stuff, some real leadership, some, take care of what the community has entrusted you. We paid money, taxes for streetlights, for parks, and for a 911 system. Right. And we're letting that all go to hell.
So you're right.
That's what we have talked about since I came to town and started in on this stuff. Is we're not doing the maintenance of the stuff we have. Yeah. We are not doing the things that are required that we require of local government to do. The police, fire, parks, the basics. Yeah. And what we're doing is we're going to ignore those and leave those to go to pot while we bring in all these giant projects and tax the populace to death so we could do these projects and forget first things first.
He did. He touched. I tried to bring that out with the green energy infrastructure. The words green energy infrastructure is mega project. By definition, he has said in 2 different areas of Reddit, we need to organic grow it from the bottom up because we spent too much money in these mega projects like putting water in a river, which is a whole nother argument.
Well, but the question is, what does he mean by grow it from the bottom up?
He talks about organic, small, homegrown stuff, which is in contradiction to the green infrastructure.
Okay, yes, well, there's not a problem with that if it's voluntary. The problem is if he's going to dictate it to the individuals to force it on all of us.
Okay, Tom, because it was early in the show, I didn't want to press him on it because I was trying to give you your time on this.
Right, I had a plan.
He talked about our petroleum industry as being heavily subsidized. Well, I don't see that. I see our petroleum industry is paying huge taxes, especially in the state of Oklahoma. It is the driving factor that runs our state infrastructure.
It's
government.
Called, when he's talking about denying the industry that has jobs here now to bring jobs from somewhere else from the future for people who will live here in the future.
Well, Tom, the point I'm bringing at is I don't see where the petroleum industry is being subsidized unless you're calling ethanol, which is not an Oklahoma thing, it's an Iowa thing, okay? Right. Unless you're talking about that. But again, that's the green energy thing, the renewable sources. That's not the petroleum.
The petrol industry around here does get significant tax breaks, yes? I don't know. I'm suggesting they have some sort of deal,
We argue about the level of tax they pay. Right. That's always on the chopping block. But the subsidizing of the industry, I don't see it. And I think if he's going to make that assertion, he's going to have to come up with some evidence.
I saw the same thing you did, David, and I don't know about the subsidization, but the point is that green energy has been heavily subsidized. Has been almost exclusively subsidized.
Yeah. It doesn't work. So Solyndra was how many? Almost $1 billion for Solyndra.
No, half a billion.
Half a billion. Cut the board in half.
I know. Yeah. So I do have a problem with that. I think we're being a little bit loose. And again, that's what happens when you campaign in echo chambers and nobody gets a chance to challenge you on that. And thank God we got this forum because the major media in this town has nothing for us. You know, it's up to people like us to really bring these guys up. Yeah.
Channel 2 and Channel 8, in my mind, were arguing whether the blue line was painted or thrown was the big question to me. I don't care what the paint matters at the color. It was it thrown or was it painted, because that's an artistic difference, my God.
Yes, and that didn't come from the community.
Can throw paint.
Yeah, and Tom, noticed last night in the news, they referred to the yellow paint as being a community expression, but the blue paint is not.
It is, but it's not.
What does it matter?
It matters no difference. Because it draws out the understanding that you don't get to pick the group you're in. The group picks you.
No. This means
no. Did you hear that, Van? No.
I'm sorry, but no.
Gotcha.
No, the thing here is whether government is going to allow it only if there's a significant number. And they're going to deny the individual or vice versa. Yeah. That's the issue. It isn't about the numbers, and that's what we've got to keep drumming into everybody. A large group is only made up of individuals, and you protect the individual rights, and then you protect the group.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Tom, when my parents were kids, a child in an agricultural society was a net asset to the family economically by the time they were about 10. Okay, right. They helped with the farm. I grew up in a small town. If I wanted anything to, athletic fees or go to summer camp, my parents didn't pay for that. I did. I had to go find a job. I shined shoes. I delivered newspapers and stuff. But let me tell you about my first couple of jobs because this ties into him.
Okay.
My first job was carrying out groceries at a grocery store and putting them in people's cars. That job doesn't exist anymore because minimum wage killed it. Yep. Then I pumped gas for about a year and a half. That job doesn't exist anymore. Minimum wage killed it. Right. So the opportunities for kids to earn some money and learn the work ethic does not largely exist today because of social engineering like what he's advocating.
Right.
You know, and now listen, I've got family in Seattle, several family members up there. Yeah. You know, I've talked to them. I was at a wedding, you know, and I was asking, hey, you guys went to $15 an hour. You know, how's that not destroying? Listen, the people of Seattle decided that's how they want to live. And if they want to, they can live in Seattle. We're not Seattle. He wants us to be Seattle on that issue. I'm not buying.
Well, the problem is, the problem is it's unconstitutional.
It is.
And so even in Seattle, it's unconstitutional. They don't get to decide what their neighbors are going to be forced, what they're going to force their neighbors to pay or what they're going to force them to work for. Because if you want to come along and carry groceries for $8 an hour, you have the right, you know?
Yeah.
One of the things that I see being a contradiction in terms with not just Mr. Immel, but with other politicians is I think there's a paradigm between new vision and best practices. One of the things that we keep hearing from people like Craig Emerald is we really got to have somebody with a new vision. And the way I'm going to get that new vision is to look to people who are industry leaders with practices that are best. It's like, well, best practices are not new vision.
When I hear best practices, alarm bells go off. That means heavy-handed government trying to push their will and their ways.
Best practices is consensus, not truth.
Yeah.
Another thing is this idea of narrative. Narrative is something that's created. It's not something. This is something William Barr was talking about, and someone I love dearly who is being forced to take hours and hours of diversity training that I'm also enjoying with her so I can learn. There's a system called MICE, M-I-C-E, and M stands for, sorry, Van, M stands for measure your response, and I stands for identify your the social landscape, and then C stands for challenge your lens, and E stands for expand your references. So I want to point out that one of the things in the MICE project about how to do diversity training is and that is identify the social narrative is what they say by scanning the social landscape and figuring out which group you're in. And this again brings me to my point. You don't pick your group. The group picks you. You can be a member genetically of a family and they'll boot you as the black sheep. You don't pick the group. And this is the problem with group rights. You keep thinking in diversity training, they will tell you, identify your social group. No, the group picks you, just like the Black Lives narrative. If I go down there to add my community touch without even changing the font, without even changing the message, but just changing the font, I'm not included in their group. I guarantee it.
Yep.
Well, and to your point, in actuality, that identify isn't identify your own group, because again, like you said, you don't get to self-identify.
Right.
It's what group do they perceive you as?
Correct. David Oldham for 250.
And it's like, yeah, well, that's bogus.
Yeah,
I just reject the narrative. Yeah. That's the problem with this whole thing is like, and they keep throwing me into groups that I don't belong.
Exactly.
Call me a libertarian. See how I come unglued.
I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Socialist, Independent, whatever you are. There's a wide open lane right now in the run for mayor by the guy who says the buses and trains will run on time. The trash will be picked up. Somebody will answer you right away at 911. Your street lights will work. The unsexy things.
Without spending any more money.
You know, these are already things. Yes, these are already things that we pledged.
That's correct.
You know, instead, GT Biden's spending money sending people over to the Tulsa Public Schools meetings, and you know who else wants to do it? Ty Walker. He
Well,
just issued a deal.
Craig says he wants to do it. Well,
Yeah.
he didn't get that specific, but he wants to deal with education from the city,
Right.
just like GT talked about.
Right.
Well, he wants to actually go to the Capitol and change Oklahoma Constitution so that, yes, the city can take over the school districts, or at least the funding.
GT Bynum is the existential threat, spending my money to pay his staffers to do Greenwood Chamber of Commerce work. My God.
Yes.
Well,
How about if you write a contract for me?
It's not just Greenwood. It's every chamber of commerce.
Bynum is paying his staffers to do Greenwood chamber work.
And meanwhile, the trash is sitting there in the parking lot overflowing the dumpster.
And the lights are blank.
You're
right.
Insane. And last time I called 911, it took 3.5 minutes to get the first human voice.
Wow.
All right, we're in big trouble around here because I'm not running for mayor. So let me ask you, boys, you got anything else? Court updates or anything?
I do.
What is it?
Education.
Talk to me, baby.
We are not going back to campus in most of the school districts, at least in the big metropolitan areas. I think Bixby is going to. They're kind of the outlier. Just got off the phone with David Cheney, one of the co-founders of Epic. They are about to overpass 50,000 students. That's far beyond any of the other brick and mortar. Now, why do I say that? This is the only innovation that we see happening in our public school system. This is where we make it fit each individual kid.
It's a private model.
Yes. It's a charter school system, and I'm telling you, this is a good thing. This was that flanking maneuver. I thought we were about 2 years from getting here, but COVID actually moved things up. Now, this is an innovation in how we deliver education. Now, if we're going to do education publicly, let's at least be innovative about it, and so this is a good thing in that we're at least getting a better product that fits the families, fits the students.
Well, it proves that you don't need things that we have been told forever and ever we need. And that so if we can think outside of the brick and mortar box, let's think outside of the socialist box entirely.
Okay.
Right.
Now, here's the corruption that's going to bankrupt our state legislature coming up this next session.
Yep.
Because with these online virtual charters like Epic, they only get funded for the kids currently enrolled this semester, this year. However, the brick and mortar predecessors, like the big ones, Tulsa Public Schools, Oklahoma City Public Schools.
Right.
I bring up example. Tom and his family used, not you, Tom, a different Tom.
Yeah.
And his family lived in Oklahoma City a couple years ago. Their kids are going to the Oklahoma City Public Schools. Last year, he took a job in Tulsa, and he was in Tulsa Public Schools. His kids were last year. Both of those schools this year will get full funding for a kid who's now an Epic, because they get to be funded for ghost students that are no longer there, but were in the last 2 years.
Right.
Yes.
And so what's happening is our state legislature will get charged 3 times as much for the same kid, and
Correct.
2 of it gets wasted on ineffective public brick and mortar school
Due
districts.
to the
Correct.
inefficiency of the bureaucratic government, they're always a day late.
But it's the weak will of our legislature. They set up the rules this way.
Yeah.
This is a problem, and it's going to bite them in the butt this year.
Okay. I got to say, I'm always trying to protect the legislature from the ill spending of the districts, because they claim we're not funding education. By God, $2.5 billion every 300 days, it's funded. Okay. And if you're claiming you can't keep the lights on, but you're buying counselors and nurses,
but Tom,
that's a problem. The districts pay teachers,
Tom,
not
this is
the legislature.
Tom,
this
the
is
problem
a legislative issue entirely.
It's a spending problem, not an appropriation.
Tom, we're paying 3 school districts for 1 student.
That's only in one school.
Yes.
So again, yes, I understand. I'm not accurately commenting on
Tom,
what you're talking about.
Here's what I was told. Get ready. You heard it here first. Next year, the legislature is going to push to raise taxes on services. That means when you go to the doctor, your bill is going to get hit another 10, 15 bucks.
Remember, that was Mary Fallon's try.
Yes.
She tried that a couple of years.
I'm telling you, it's coming.
Let me try to save face. What I was trying to say was, even though I was inaccurately placing my precision, I was suggesting that it is typically argued that we don't spend enough on schools. And what you're talking about, the bureaucratic problem, is a problem with accounting for spending. It's not a problem with not having enough money. We fund the ever-loving hell out of it, like you said, 2 times 4 sometimes per student. So we are overfunded. While my accuracy was off, my precision still holds.
Yeah. Whatever you say.
We'll borrow that one later. Trust me.
I gotta let that think here. I'm having a fight.
You're still trying to hard.
You guys are still trying to figure out a man ahead of his time has got to be late every chance he gets to bring the average out of it. That's a math problem.
Yeah. But the cool thing in this is Oklahoma is coming to understand what it means to educate your kids at home, and people are finding they like it. And listen, Oldham and I, we were ahead of our time. We homeschooled in that, and they thought we were weirdos, and now
you are, but I mean, you still homeschool.
But anyway, it's cool to see this happening. The people understand you can teach your kids at home, and you can protect your kids from an environment that's not always healthy. Listen, if I was going to, make sure my kids had good socialization, the Tulsa Public Schools is the last place I'd turn to for healthy socialization.
Exactly. Well, China meant COVID for evil, but God's using COVID for good.
I would say that.
I agree with that.
In
a lot of ways. In fact, I have never done it, but there are a lot of silver linings to this whole COVID debacle. And it's not about COVID. It's the government debacle regarding COVID.
We spent the last, go ahead.
But anyway, there's a lot of silver linings if you look for them that we can find.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I love, especially in the education realm, is they've been crying for 20 years. We need new books. Why? Because we let the children ruin our other resources. Well, what do you need books for? Because we need books. And then it's like, oh, we don't need books. We need Epic and online. Yeah, you didn't even. Where was the school for 20 years getting us off of the 1865 model of education? I mean, it's sick. Woodrow Wilson came up with the education system and segregation. Let's just pitch both of them. I mean, God,
I do have a court update that's kind of funny.
Court updates before we get out of here.
Okay. Hats off to Travis Brower. You guys remember Travis Brower? It's been a few years. He was part of Mary Fallon's staff, and he was assigned to be a negotiator with the legislature a few years ago. Well, it was a late night in the last week of session. They're trying to hammer out some kind of a deal. And, the problem is they couldn't even have a committee meeting without all these activists that the Democrats brought in. And they were disrupting these committee meetings because, they leave them open. And there's not a whole lot of room. Well, Travis is sitting on the floor, and a pretty young gal, evidently, I think I don't know who she is. So judgmental. But she's standing up there next to Travis on the floor, and she's
trying to keep me interested.
Well, Travis decides that his cell phone has a pretty good vantage point or something, and somebody the next day reports him that, hey, man, he was doing an upskirt video with his phone. Well, as soon as that gets out and a police report gets sent out, Mary Fallon, fires him on the spot. And then eventually the prosecutor's office says, hey, you need to come on down here. We need to talk about things, and we need to see what's on your phone. Well, he says, and that was like a Friday. He says, I'll come on in Monday. Well, don't you know, he just happened to go to the lake that weekend and happened to have lost his phone in the lake. And and it was an iPhone. Well, then he finally gets real smart. He says, you know what? I did a backup of my iPhone on my laptop, on my Mac. And sure enough, they check it out and stuff, and it had a little bit more than what he thought had on there, because it had some things that said, oh yeah, you guys, you actually cleaned this out before you went to the lake, right? So the funny thing is, he was going to get charged with a misdemeanor for doing the upskirt video, but the damaging evidence was a felony. So, yeah, so people are saying, why would you commit a felony to cover up a misdemeanor, you know? Well, anyway, so he gets all these different delays, negotiations. And finally, last fall, this happened. I didn't realize it. You know, they do a hush-hush. He finally pled to the misdemeanor and got 80 hours unsupervised community service, and then had to pay about $1,000 in various court fines, fees, and costs. So, Travis, you got out of going to prison. Good.
80 hours. That's not getting out of it. What's he having to do? 80 hours. He could be at the beach or something, having to pick up trash.
Unsupervised. He just has to self-report, basically. And it's in Grady County, which I don't know who his connections are in Grady County. But again, Travis, you got spared some prison.
Well, Travis knows what a lot of those upskirt artists know, and that is every woman's beautiful if you zoom in close enough.
Okay.
There you Somebody's got to make it entertaining around here. You guys are going to bore the hell out of them.
Yeah. So what's going on the rest of the month? Are we going to see any more candidates?
The biggest news I've got right now is Greg Robinson. I just got confirmation from his team today. I've been waiting over a week or just at a week. And so very excited. As I said last week, I think he is the one to watch. I think all these other guys are GT light. And I think that now Ken Reddick has a lot of momentum, and he was the guy I kind of leaned toward just simply because of the mask mandate. And I really see the mask issue, the individual freedom issue, symbolically being the difference maker, because each one of these guys is talking about pouring more, essentially what I consider welfare resources into the places we've been pouring welfare resources into, which is just like basic socialism. Well, it hadn't worked for 50 years because you didn't have me there to do it. I'm the guy that's going to spend the money in the right place. Well, you know, as long as we continue to help the butterfly out of its cocoon in North Tulsa, it will never have the strength to fly. And so I just see everybody doing the same damn thing we've been doing for 50 years. The war on poverty didn't work, friends. If you haven't noticed, LBJ is gone, JFK is gone, poverty's still here. It didn't work. So whatever you thought was working didn't work. Now, what I find amazing is my opponent from 4 years ago, Paul Tay, is turning out to be the one that sounds different. Now, I don't want to short shrift the promo for Craig Robinson. He's got a lot of power. He's got a lot of resume. Craig Immel, the guy we had on tonight, says, hey, he likes Craig Robinson. And Craig Robinson and him are basically similar in a lot of ways. Craig Robinson kind of I'm hoping will give me some insight on my font concept for the Black Lives Matter thing, because he probably has a more culturally accurate understanding than I do. I'm a simple man, which makes me abrasive.
There's this yin and yang thing going. You got the black pride, and on the other side, you got the white guilt and shame and self-loathing, you know, and that's the difference between the two of them, in my opinion.
What I love is that Greg Robinson
looking at me like, did you say that?
Listen, it is hard to run for office, and Greg Robinson has agreed. Greg Robinson has a lot on his platform. It's not like he's a one-trick pony like me. I had one thing, you know, and but Greg Robinson's got a lot on his plate, and if he wins, he's got a lot more on his plate. So I can't be more pleased to have 3D Politics gain the gravitas of having these mayoral candidates on, each one of them, and hopefully GT Bynum will grace us with his respect, as each one of the other guys has, with the exception of Whitlow, who's just basically AWOL. So yes,
we're gonna
next
make room
week.
for Paul. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, Paul Tay is definitely coming up the night before the election.
Okay.
And that is according to an agreement with Van and Paul Tay.
Yeah.
But Paul Tay, I cannot wait to get. He's posted some stuff about the Kaiser. He posted a link about the Kaiser Foundation and how philanthropy is potentially doing us wrong. I thought it was a very informative article by somebody Mason. I can't remember. But anyway, I really am thankful for Ken Reddick, Ty Walker, and Craig Emmel. And next week, Greg Robinson coming up to talk more about the Tulsa mayor's race. Guys, what else before we get out? I'm sure I've forgotten something.
We're boring people by now.
Well, because I'm talking, I take it. I get it.
Just a little inside baseball. If you're a Republican and we're planning last spring to go to the state convention, it is this weekend. It's going to be probably one of the biggest reshaping decision conventions that we've had, and that's going to be in Oklahoma City on Saturday. Just a reminder for those people that are going to be part of that. So I want to remind you.
All right.
That's the only other thing
you don't want to reshape things drastically.
Yeah, we have some decisions to make, and I've already posted a good article on some of the most crucial things, and I'm not supporting them, and I don't think they're going to pass.
Hey, I also want to thank Blake Barber, our #1 critic and fan, and also Cheryl Wilberg Johnson was out there tonight. Once again, Tommy McCay, your fantastic and perspicuous host here at 3D Politics Live every Monday, 7 p.m. with David Van, SoonerPolitics.org, and David Oldham with ConstitutionalGrounds.com. Don't forget the big excitement for next Monday. Greg Robinson, Tulsa mayoral candidate. We appreciate everybody for being here. We'll talk to you next week.
Good night.
Awesome. Good. I'm going to leave and rejoin.
Stop recording.